spyware on your computer. So either side of that spectrum is not going to like this talk. If you're on either one of those, you're not in it for winning for both sides, right? We have to try to find a way to win for both sides. Yeah. Exactly. That might be the way. Yeah. I'll make a proposal maybe at the end of the talk. It might happen about how we do it. Tell me when you're ready.
See if everyone online can hear it.
So far it's so good.
And now we're recording that, so let's see. Hopefully people can hear it. Huh? Oh, it's fine. It doesn't matter. What?
Hey, for coming and everyone for joining online, we have Sean give a good overview of what remote work has changed our tech industry. So without any more, let's take it away.
Great, thank you. So welcome. Let me tell you who I am first, so you know. And I just realized my clicker's not going to work unless Zoom's in the front. So let me try. There we go. So this is my really professional headshot right here on the left. I am a leadership and team performance coach. I have been doing this work for about a decade, maybe almost 15 years now, in some form or another. I've worked at all these companies, including the government, for 5 years, and had a top secret clearance even for a little while. I've worked for every place, from places they don't even know your name to places where you sit right next to the founder. And I am the author of an upcoming book called One Drop of Poison: How One Bad Leader Can Slowly Kill Your Company. That book will be out at the beginning of next year, hopefully, if the book editing gods go well. My favorite motto is practice makes what? Permanent. No, you're right. It's practice makes perfect. But I always say practice makes permanent, because whatever you're practicing is going to become permanent. So you better be practicing the right thing, or the wrong thing becomes permanent, even though you'll be doing it perfectly. And that's one of the reasons why we have coaches. Now, one of the problems with this talk is I feel a little bit like somebody in 1965 trying to convince everyone about lung cancer, right? Like, in 1965, babies were coming out of the womb with cigarettes in their mouths. Everybody smoked in 1965. But if you were out there having the message of like, look, smoking's dangerous for you, and you could have all these you'd be pretty much shoved out the door before anybody. And I feel a little bit like that with the remote work conversation. I feel like I'm here to tell you what you're going to lose from remote working, what you're losing from it, from a psychological standpoint, what you're losing. And it is so popular. And I feel a little bit like I'm standing in front of a tidal wave with an umbrella, just like, hey, it's not going to work. But you got to bear with me, because I'm going to walk you through some great stuff about this topic. And I think once you understand what we're losing and what we're gaining, we can find a better solution. The problem we're having now is we're not even talking. We're not even talking about a good solution for both sides, because each side is unwilling to give the other the benefit of, oh yeah, I get you like working from your home in your pajamas. Like if I tell you that's okay with me, then you'll think, great, I'm never coming in the office, right? And if I admit that I kind of miss my coworkers and I kind of like coming in, that's like the other side going, great, get in here and be here all the time. So each side seems to be unwilling to give the other any room to budge, and that's why I'm here, to upset both sides. All right, so what do employees gain from remote work? Right. Well, these things we can go very fast. We get from it, right? We get autonomy, which means nobody's looking over our shoulder to tell us how to do the work. We're actually just told, get this done and then do it. We get flexibility, right? I don't have to start clocking in at a certain time. I pretty much can start when I go, and I can get up and go to the bathroom when I want. And there's a lot of flexibility about how I get my work. Cost savings are huge for some. I mean, especially if you're a parent. If you're a parent of small kids, you can save a ton of money in childcare by being home when your kids come home from school, right? Not to mention commuting costs. It can add up to almost $10,000 to $30,000 a year. Obviously you have a larger job market, right? You're not stuck working in the geography you live in. You could take jobs anywhere. Focus and productivity goes up. Statistically speaking, productivity, that's what the numbers tell us, that productivity is going up. Now, I will say there's a downside. We'll talk about that. That is a little bit more of a function. I'm very out of focus in this camera right now, I think. Is it because I'm moving around? Should I just stop? Oh, okay.
There we go. They got
Okay. So I believe that is more of a function of your house and the dysfunctional design of office than it is about just being your house. In other words, there are people whose homes are incredibly unfocused. Where if you have 3 kids running around like romper room behind you, it is not going to be any easier for you to focus home than it would have been with your coworkers hollering each other over cubicles. So it's really more about, I would say, in general, people's homes are quieter than offices, and I do think companies can do better here. Less forced social interaction. So introverts love this. Introverts love working from home, and they're the first ones to complain online when the boss says, "I want you back in the office." Like, I don't want to go back in. I like not being forced into these social situations that I'm having to, interact with coworkers and team building events, blah, 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 right? You get more time with your kids, your pets, your partners, theoretically anyway. And you have better mental health. At least you could have better mental health. I'm actually going to make the argument that it's a little bit worse, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. And I'll explain why that is in a minute. Not the least of which could be because you don't have a good relationship with your kids, your pets, or your partners, right? I mean, if that's true and you're stuck in a room with them, you're not going to have better mental health. You'll have worse mental health, right? But there's other reasons why you might have worse. Now, what are companies gaining? Well, what they're going to get is a larger talent pool, right? They can hire from anybody, from anywhere. That works against workers, though, right? I mean, now you're competing with people in New York when you weren't before. Higher morale to a point. So higher morale comes from people going, "Oh, yay, I get to work from home. Woo!" Right? Exciting. That little peak wears off, though, because there are parts about it that we're going to talk about that are unavoidable and aren't necessarily that great. Like once we start taking for granted that we work from home, now we still want companies. And we need to know it's got to be some case the work we're doing. So, and there's cost savings. Obviously, people don't have buildings anymore, potentially. Now, what are employees losing? Well, they're losing mentorship. And this is a big deal. If you're a new employee at a company or just starting out in your career, this osmosis that you get from being around people who are more experienced than you, talking about work, talking about how to solve problems, you're not hearing those things. You don't have the organizational awareness that you would have had. Like, in other words, just sitting physically in an office, I have teams around me. I have another team over there and over there, and I know what those, if somebody was doing their job right at the company, our teams probably work together or collaborate on something, right? And I can overhear conversations happening in the next cubicle or the next team area that could be relevant to me. Or maybe I'm filing something away and I'm in one of my meetings and I think, I thought I heard Jason say something yesterday. You're not hearing those conversations anymore. In fact, I would argue that our peripheral communication is way down, and the numbers do back that up. So even though individual productivity is up, team productivity is down. And team periphery conversations, the conversations that happen at the periphery of your team, are way down. Because basically, if it isn't happening on your Zoom call, it isn't happening, at least not in your world, right? But the reality is, it is happening, and you're just not hearing it. You're not part of it. You're not seeing it. Also, I would argue about the organizational awareness. We are losing a little bit of our mental maps, right? When COVID first happened, working relationship with our coworkers and a pretty good organizational map in our head of which teams we worked with. We could put a face with a team and we kind of knew who we needed to go to. Well, then we all went to home the same day, basically. Like everybody's like, we're not going to the office anymore. And we got to leverage all those connections that we'd made with our coworkers, right? I knew you, you knew me. We all ended up, we could leverage that remotely. It worked fine. This is why you can talk to your Aunt Matilda once a year and it's like she's sitting right there next to you, right? Because you already have a connection with that person. So we're just talking on virtual. It's totally fine. But now companies have been reorging and people have been laid off and people have left the job, started another company. And now we have a lot of teams, maybe even a majority of teams where the team members have never met each other in person. None of them. Even if they've been working together for 6 months, they may have never met each other in person. And you might think, well, no big deal, right? We all look at each other on camera. Okay, well, I'll get to that. Extroverts hate this. Okay. I'm an extrovert. We didn't realize we hated it until now. Like 3 years have gone by and I'm realizing how much I hate it. And I actually know some people who are extroverts. It's always interesting. You can spot things in other people before you spot them in yourself. I have a friend who's a really big extrovert. I've always known him as an extrovert. And I noticed almost immediately in the first couple months of the COVID situation, he was not the same. He was it was like almost depressed. And this is a guy who could light a room up when he walked in. So I noticed it immediately on him and he started to notice it on himself as well. We have increased competition for jobs. As I mentioned, the visibility of work and achievements is bad. Your work is only visible to people who see it, like literally is tangentially seeing it because they just happen to be sitting in a room or saw a presentation you gave to another team, right? There's not a lot of visibility of your achievements. Or to be promoted because it's harder to be noticed. And we get Zoom fatigue, right? And I want to talk about Zoom fatigue a little bit more. We're also missing trust and connection. And I want to detour here for just a second because I want to put this quote up here from Patrick Lencioni, who wrote the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. He says, "The most dysfunctional teams I've ever worked with never argued." Now, I don't know if you can connect with that. I definitely can connect. Silence is not agreement. And you end up with more. In fact, he makes this argument really well in The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So if you haven't read the book, I recommend you do. His argument is that if I don't feel safe to tell you what I really think of your idea, then I'm not going to say anything at all because I have a fear of conflict with you. I'm not going to say anything. I don't say anything to you. Then we're going to go ahead and go forward with your idea. And then, of course, at the end, it's all going to blow up because it wasn't a good idea. But because nobody felt safe to tell you it wasn't a good idea, the team at the end ends up with the wrong solution. And then I'm back here going, I thought it was a dumb idea from the beginning, right? So it works against us to not have connection. So what do I mean by connection? Because there's 3 kinds of trust. It's bothering me really bad. Stuff. Okay, so there's 3 kinds of trust. We've got consistency trust. See, people always think trust is a yes or no. I trust you, you trust me, right? We're good. We trust each other. It isn't like that. I think we all know that it's more nuanced than that. I can trust that you are going to do what I think you're going to do and that your behavior is predictable. Okay. That's consistent trust. I can trust that you know what you're doing. I can trust that you've gotten the kind of training that I think you got. Maybe we went through the same training, so I know you're credible and you're capable and I'm capable. Okay. But this third one is this vulnerability trust, this idea that I can tell you I was wrong because I made a mistake, or I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to solve it. I have the answer, or I think your answer is dumb, or I think your answer is not going to work, right? If I don't feel safe, that kind of connectivity over here, this is the stuff team performance is made of, you guys, not this stuff over here. Yeah, this is okay. The military operates with these 2 a lot. Okay. But this third one here is not a given. And I can tell you right now, you can get these first 2 virtually, no problem. This third one is actually really hard to get. And it's really hard to get virtually because we are evolutionarily evolved. Is that a word? Can I say it that way? A phrase? We've evolved. How's that? Socially, to not give this away easily. Because our ancestors, it's going to cost them their life to trust the wrong person. So we have a lot of chemicals coursing through our body that tell us when someone can be trusted and when they can't be trusted. We have chemicals that shut trust off, and we have chemicals that turn it on. And we have superpowers. We have evolved. to figure out who to trust. So I'm going to talk about those superpowers in a minute here. What companies are going to lose from remote work, obviously, they say, and they're correct about this, collaboration, incidental communication, innovation, and culture. They think these things are all this. If you listen to companies that want people back in the office, they're saying this is what they're worried about. Okay. And here's the part where I get to upset both sides. They're absolutely right about this. The numbers show that this is all in the tank. Okay. With remote work. However, it's coming from companies that have been outsourcing teams to other countries for the last decade to suddenly care about these three things, right? I want them to care about these three things. I really do. Or four things, whatever it is. I want them to care about these things, but I want them to care about them consistently. Like I want you to say, hey, this is why we don't split our teams across geographies. Because when we do that, we impact these things. These impacts have been happening to teams for a decade because of outsourcing and the way we do. It's not just outsourcing. I want to be clear. It's okay that you have a team in India and a team in China and a team in Ireland and a team in the United States. It's not okay that you have a team with a team member from Ireland, from China, from the United States. That's not okay. And that's what they're doing. You know, they expect, it's like, oh, this looked better on the spreadsheet and I'm saving a lot of money by doing it this way. So you guys work out the problems. All the problems of like me getting up at 3 a.m. now to have meetings with people you put me on a team with that are five time zones away from me, right? So I want to just both credit the idea that these things are hurting and also say don't be hypocritical about it, right? If you care about these things, you should care about them all the time. Okay. Visibility and individual achievements is harder for companies. They can't see who's top performing and who's not. It's harder for them to promote from within because of that. So that it's easier for me to look at someone's resume and just pull them in from another company than it is to notice some stuff. Because it's harder for me to see the rising star. Okay. And we have all these buildings, you know, like this is another reason why everybody wants like Nike, you know, they spend $1 billion on, they like they're in it. I get that. But from my view, it's a little bit like the Model T comes around and somebody says, we have all these horses, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, progress happens. So I want the entire commercial real estate market to crash and the whole economy to crash with it. But we should start moving ourselves to at least allowing for this paradigm. Yeah. It is. It can't be because quietly. It's not that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, testing 1, 2. Is everybody okay? I'm going to start talking loud again, so maybe it's cutting out because I'm too loud. All right. So who thinks video conferencing does not work as well as in-person meetings? Just raise your hands. Okay. Good. I'm glad to hear that people are glad to see that's the case. If you're not convinced, and I know some people who would not be convinced by that, I'm going to try to convince you. So here's our superpower. We have a superpower that I'm going to show you right now. We're going to do an exercise. And I am not picking, I hope this is going to work or not. Maybe it's not going to, oh yeah, it will. I'm not picking on this guy right here. Okay. Because I know, but I want you to look at his face because in a minute, I'm going to play a video and I want you to tell me when his smile becomes fake. Notice it? There's a spot. So first of all, you can tell everybody's laughing. So whoever's off camera, the photographer is like, okay, everybody. And he probably said something really funny, which is why everybody's in the room is genuinely laughing. You can see it, right? We all can pick up that there was something really funny that happened. And then there's this, it's almost like you can imagine the room as being, okay, keep smiling, keep smiling, keep smiling. You can hear the videographer saying that, keep smiling. And he's going, oh God, I forgot. I have to keep smiling. His head tilts, his mouth goes down a bit, his eyes open more. We have this superpower where we can see micro expressions that happens very, very quickly. Now I'm just repeating this over and over so you guys can keep watching the same thing, but you didn't need me to, believe me. If you were asked to trust this guy, you probably wouldn't, because we don't trust people whose micro expressions don't line up with their macro expressions. right? So when I'm smiling, but it's you can tell it's not real because my eyes aren't in on it. There's a whole set of body language. And by the way, your prefrontal cortex is not the thing doing the work here. It's your limbic system way back here. In fact, before you could even describe that smile as fake with words, which means that's prefrontal, right? Your limbic system is already having a feeling, don't trust this guy. Even though I don't have words for it yet, we can tell when expressions are fake, even when we can't tell people why. I don't know why it's fake, but it just doesn't. You ever get a gut feeling? I just don't trust that guy. Trust your gut feeling, because your limbic system got involved and started pattern matching. And dogs are really good at spotting micro expressions also, which is why those people say, if my dog likes you, I'll like you. You know, if my dog doesn't like you, you're not coming in my house, right? I mean, it's a lot of the same type of thing. Okay, now, photographers know this. This is why some of the best pictures of your family are when you catch them mid-laugh, right? You make them laugh, take a picture. Versus smile, everyone say cheese, cheese. And it looks like this, right? Including this guy here who looks like he's kind of reanalyzing his life choices about how he, right? You can read a story in people's facial expressions, okay? Now, you might be thinking, okay, Sean, this is all fascinating about micro expressions, but we have our cameras on, so it should be good, right? Like we're hopefully your cameras are on. Okay, well, no. And the reason why is because of this delay that we're going to talk about right now. So they did a study last year where they put some people through an interview process, and they asked yes or no questions. And they wanted the person to answer yes or no as fast as they could. So, and it wouldn't be things they'd have to think about. Like they'd hold up a blue card and say, is this blue? And they'd say yes, right? And they'd measure the time it took the person to say yes or no in person. And when they did that, they found that the average response time was 297 milliseconds. It's about how long it takes a human being to study it, process it, and say yep or no. Okay. How long do you think it was? You want to take a guess for the remote session of the same thing? Take a guess. Even more. 976 milliseconds. Okay. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute. Okay, just had crappy internet. Nope. Because Zoom only introduced a 70 millisecond delay, 30 to 70 milliseconds. So the entire rest of this, all 610 milliseconds, was neurological delay, not technological delay. And the researchers, this is really cutting edge research, so they're still thinking about what this might be. But what they think is that our brains tend to operate with a little bit of an oscillator in our head that is ticking at around 300 milliseconds. And so if you and I are having a conversation and then you pause, I might wait 300 milliseconds before I come in with my thing, right? And then you come back and so on, right? And we were talking in person, that oscillation just kind of happens. It just goes back and forth. But on a video call, because of this delay, our brain gets out of whack. That 70 seconds throws that oscillation off. And so we wait a full 2 cycles before we say what we're going to say, because we're just not sure if that was the real pause or if that was there's like a whole part where our brain starts messing with us. And that makes video calls that look like this. How come we don't have sound?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I think what we should do.
It actually really depends on how you look at it, because Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Given sales, we're at
Let me just say that.
Okay.
This is exactly. Have you been on a call like this? Because I have. And that's what happens when we're out of sync with each other. Okay. We think the other person starts talking. They don't think they're going to talk. So we say something and then they start talking. But that talk was that 70 milliseconds. I'm sorry, you had a comment or a question. What was it? Trusting who's next?
Yeah, you're going to drop by site.
Yeah, well, you're not sure if this is a real opening or if there's a technical. Your brain just kicks. It doesn't want to step over somebody. You're trying hard not to be the person talking to the other person over the other person, right? So this is a problem. This 600 milliseconds is an eternity for your limbic system, okay? And one of the reasons why we get Zoom fatigue is because our limbic system goes through this little panic thing, like, wait, did I just say something offensive? Oh no, okay, they're laughing. Whew, and then we're like back. Now I'm off the stress hormone, back to dopamine again, and then back to cortisol again when the next pause happens and I said something vulnerable and I wasn't sure if anybody was. This is why we can't connect that third trust, because we're messing with our limbic system that has evolved over millions of years to trust a very, very fast circuit we have, faster than our prefrontal cortex. The limbic system is closer to your brainstem than your prefrontal cortex. So you will feel this before you even think it. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Now we're going to do another exercise. So the first problem we have with Zoom is the delay. What we have is this on stage or off problem. Here's how I describe this. This is the captive succession, and they're all sitting at a table, and we are seated at the end of that table, looking towards everyone. Okay. Now, from looking at this, nobody's moving. We just have a still photo here. But what can we tell about this room? Well, we can tell that these two are looking at each other, and that she's not too happy, right? We can also tell that these two are looking at him, and I can guarantee you that he can tell they're looking at him also, because we have peripheral vision. So we can see when people are looking at us out of the corner of our eye, which is why if somebody was staring at you on the train, you'd be like, eventually you'd like look over to see why people are looking at you, okay? And why people are looking at you goes to the limbic system again, because it has to do with if people are looking at you because you're some kind of a pariah, that means your life is in jeopardy according to your survival mechanism, right? And so it triggers stress hormones to happen. Okay, we can also tell that these two are not looking at the other four, but they seem to be having a conversation with their eyes. You see that? Like, it's like they know something. They're both looking at each other, and it's like they're both reading each other's minds because they're looking into each other's eyes. All of this from a single photo, okay? Here's the same cast on a Zoom call. Now, who's looking at who? We don't know. Even this person right here, who is looking down and to the left, so we know he's looking at somebody on Zoom, but we don't know who's down and to the left on his screen, so we have no idea. The bottom line with Zoom is that everybody could be looking at you, or nobody could be looking at you. You don't know, and you'll never know. And actually, there is one way for you to know that everyone is looking at you, and that is be the only person on the call with your camera on. Then I guarantee you will be the only person everyone sees on their screen, which is why as cameras start to turn off, they start popping it on, right? It'll go like one person's off, then another person's off. And then the fewer people that are on the call, the faster the cameras start to go off, because nobody wants to be that last person with their camera on. And let's be honest, most of our Zoom calls look like this anyway, don't they? Like, I've taught over 100 classes in the last 3 years and been to a ton of meetings virtually, a ton of them. I would say that 60 to 70% of people now have their cameras off during most of the meeting, okay? Which brings us to our third problem with Zoom, which is we have missing information. We're not going to catch the microexpression at all, okay? Imagine that you were on a call and this person had dialed into your call. Look at the information we're missing from her. We can see it because we're in the room, but on your Zoom call, you would not. You wouldn't see any of this. All you would hear is you wouldn't see her fake smile, and we can't hear her eyes roll back in her head, right? But they are. And then she gives a fake smile, and then you can tell she's just telling somebody what they want to hear, right? And so if you were the other person on the other end of that, you're just being told what you want to hear, but you have no idea what's really going on. So this is missing information. Okay. Number 4, we are distracted by ourselves, okay? Zoom puts, or all I'm picking on Zoom here, but all of them do this, okay? They put the picture of you up so you can see you. This would be like you ordering coffee at Starbucks and having your mirror right next to the barista's face. It's really distracting. Even if you're not a narcissist, it's distracting because you're like, you can't, is that a hair on my nose? What is, like you can't stop. You're like, it's just hard to avoid, right? So that's another. And so while I'm staring at whether or not that's a hair coming out of my nose, there's a whole conversation going on that I'm not able to listen to because I'm focused on this. Okay, that's looking at myself. Number 5, chat. My God, Chat is the worst invention of video conferencing ever. And I'm so glad that you all are watching chat right now because I can't. Just imagine, chat is like, it's like everything we've been talking about on steroids. You know, all that delay stuff. Now we've got a really big delay because someone's typing a thought and not just saying it, they're typing it. So I'm 4 sentences in before that talk or that thought is going to come to everyone's forefront. Just imagine that I'm up here right now giving a talk about my goofy dog, all the intricate things about the Akita breed and why they're such a fascinating breed. And then I had a dog once, pops right into chat. And now, you know, I'm still talking, but in the background, everybody's like, yeah, my uncle had one. My brother had one. Oh, they're great dogs. Oh, we had to put it down. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. There's an entire thread of conversation now happening outside of my talk, my riveting talk, I might add, about Akitas. Okay. So chat is not your friend. And it's not your friend. It's like passing notes, right? In class. Like it's like not, it's worse than passing notes because it's a note that everybody can read and the teacher can read. Everybody can read, right? I mean, look, these two aren't paying attention to what the teacher's saying. And this girl right here, she hasn't paid attention to what the teacher's saying for the entire time these two people pass the note. She's fascinated about the note passing. She has no idea what the teacher's talking about. Okay. We are physically incapable. Most of us, I would say probably 95% of us are physically incapable of texting somebody or typing something to someone and listening to understand. Listening to understand. Okay. Problem number 6, we are missing eye contact. Okay. So what's your name? Yeah. Rajiv? Okay, so Rajiv, let's say you and I are in a Zoom call and I want to look at your eyes, okay? The way I'm doing right now in person. To do that, I would you. I can't actually look at your eyes. I can only look at the camera to make you think I'm looking at your eyes. So if you see me as looking in your eyes, but I can't actually see your eyes, I have to look in the camera to make that happen. And if we both wanted to look like we were looking at each other, neither one of us could actually look at each other's eyes because we would both see this. Okay. Now, if I really did look at your eyes and you really looked at mine, to each other, we would look like we were looking down away from the camera because we're not. So it's like I'm seeing your eyeball, but I'm not looking into your eyes, right? The way we are now. That's a big miss for our limbic system. Limbic system needs this connection and we're not getting it. And Zoom's not helping us. None of the video conference. I don't want to get a call from Zoom later. And by the way, we call it Zoom fatigue. I didn't make that up, okay? That stuck. Sorry, it's like Kleenex. It's fatigue from being on a video call, no matter which provider you're using. Now, Elgato has technology they just released last week called the prompter. Now, this is a teleprompter, if you know what a teleprompter is, but this is what I'm excited about this is that it's the first time I've ever seen one be affordable. This one's like $200 versus $1,000 or $1,200, whatever for here, a piece of angled one-way glass right here that your camera is behind. You drag your zoom here. And now I really can look at your eyes because behind your eyes is my camera. Literally, physically behind your eyes is my camera. And I don't have to focus on my camera anymore. I can focus on your eye. Okay. And it's real. Like we can look at each other and really see it. So I think this is exciting. If I ran a company that was all remote, I would immediately purchase this for everyone in my company and say, please do your Zoom calls this way. Okay. Now, this isn't an endorsement for it because I haven't actually tried it yet. And I may post a review to the product on my YouTube channel. If I do get one, I'll post my experience with it and what it does. It works with like most cameras. It comes with a bunch of adapters to help you get the camera in the right place. And yeah. And you can see the example there of her doing it. So in summary, our brains are working harder to get less. And that's why we get Zoom fatigue. Okay. So we need some time. Speaking of time, how am I doing? Okay. I recommend 8%. How about 8% a year? 8% a year over time looks like 1 week per quarter together with your team. It's a pretty, I think that's a reasonable thing. The rest of the time, 22%. But this 8%, you have to be at a place, whether that's at the office with your team. It could be another way we could do it is if your team is set apart, like geographically, maybe all the team members come together at one of the team members' hometowns and get a hotel. And then the hotel, they provide a conference room for the team to work from for the week. And then that host person could maybe do something fun, take them out someplace to go do something after work, show them around, okay? And the following quarter, everybody goes to someone else's hometown. It's just to share it, the travel. I want to see more. This is a term that I have made up. So if you hear this anywhere else, you heard it here first. Temporally co-located. So as in my part of my work is agile coaching, and I do work with helping teams be agile. It's one of my ways of helping teams be productive. And we have a big thing about co-located teams. Prior to COVID, it was a big thing for us. You got to be in the same room. That's why we were railing against, outsourcing, because it's just, you can't make it happen. But that's a reality. We've sort of let it go now, but we could still hold on to temporally co-located teams. And what I mean by temporally co-located is if I'm team A, if my team is the Cheetahs, the Cheetahs are a West Coast team. So if you want to be on this team, you need to be within 2 time zones of the Pacific time zone, let's say. That gives you a really large geographic area to live in. And if you do happen to move, you just have to move to New York. Well, then you don't have to leave the company, but you do have to leave the Cheetah team. You're going to have to go find a team that's based out of the New York time zone and work with them or some really co-located area in New York. Okay. So if companies are going to start putting their foot down about stuff, I'd rather see them start putting their foot down about how far apart a team member could be. It's better for them anyway, because it's better for everybody. If we're closer, it's a shorter flight for me to go see my coworkers. It's cheaper for the company. I'm less likely to show up exhausted from jet lag because I only had a 2-hour flight to get to your hometown instead of flying all the way from Ireland or whatever. I'm picking on the Irish, I'm sorry. Okay. Team members traveled, I said this one already, they traveled to another team member's location. Focus on work that benefits from in-person collaboration. So if we were in this rhythm of once a quarter coming together for a week, if we had some big thing, we could say, why don't we start shifting, be like, let's set aside our week to talk about planning this big project we're going to be doing, because we can all work together in person for that. And then when we're working remotely for the remainder of the quarter, we're just going through the motions of building the thing that we all agreed on when we designed it together, right? So if this becomes a regular cadence, you can start pushing the right work to the right places and the right paradigms. Remote tech is allowed during that week. No one can phone it in. You have to be there in person. And I mean it. Like if I were running a company, I'd say this is the deal. There's another company that does this, by the way, Automatic, the company that runs, help me. I'm drawing a complete blank right now. The big company that does web design stuff. No, they do the templates and the WordPress. I knew I'd get it. The company that runs WordPress. They are all remote. They have employees in 75 countries. They definitely do not, they'll tell everybody, hey, 48 weeks of the year, you can be wherever you want. But these 4 weeks, you have to be where we tell you. That's a rule when you join the company, which means don't take the job offer if you can't provide for your kids and get food, out of your plant, take care of your dog, because you're going to be somewhere else for a week this often. Okay. Do something fun together. This is it right here, you guys. This is that connection part. This is where it happens. I hate to say it. Now, we'll come back in a second. Rotate to different team members' locations, as I mentioned. Ways you can make the remote part work better. Make team agreements with your team about what everybody should be doing, and then peer pressure. So if people start multitasking, or if people go, "Oh, I'm sorry, what did you say?" They're doing something else. So you should call them out. Don't just let them get away with it. And you don't do it either. Stay focused on the conversation. Keep good calendar hygiene. Recurring meetings show up on our calendar and they build up like plaque on teeth. So every once in a while, look through your calendar and see if there's a recurring meeting there that doesn't need to be there anymore. Disable chat whenever possible. I'm not going to go through that. Turn off self-view, right? It's an option. Just turn it off. See how you go, how you focus. Or maybe turn it on at the beginning of the call just so you can check that you got no hairs growing out anywhere you don't want them. Turn the shot back off again, okay, and focus on the meeting. Can't see ourselves in a conference room. This is an interesting thing. If you have 10 people, I say no more than 10. Tell everybody to get unmuted. Try it. Because we're more likely to go, yeah, oh, I hear you. Yeah, that sounds good. Or something. I could be saying those things muted. You wouldn't hear me. And that is another way we connect, is knowing you got what I said, because I hear you go, or a little giggle, which I can only see but can't hear when you're muted, right? And that's only if I happen to catch it. Okay. So try staying unmuted. Leverage the connections. You're going to be building connections while you're with people in person. So leverage those connections. Speak up, challenge each other, have respectful, lively debates online because you built the connection when you were in person. Okay. Be deliberate about work that's better done in person. As I mentioned, set up virtual collaborative space. This is another idea where everybody gets on a Zoom call and it's no meeting. We're just going to be on this call for 3 hours, and we could be muted for this one if you want. And you're just working. You're just doing your own thing. You're working. But if something occurs to you, or you're like, hey, I think Jason, you can just unmute and ask. The person's right there, just like they were when they were in the office, right? So, and you don't do this all day, every day, right? But just set up a time window for the team, maybe once a week, where 3 hours is the teams kind of sit together and work quietly moment. And if you crack a joke and everybody laughs, it's okay. You're not going to be as productive during those 3 hours as you would without it. It's okay. You'll be more productive because you're going to be connected to your team members. Trust me. I interviewed a Gen Z person. Are we out of time? Are we doing it? Okay. Oh, you did? Go ahead.
Yeah. So what's your rationale for it being 9-2-8 split? Why is that perfect?
I just figured that a lot of companies pulse at quarterly intervals. Like what's our goals for this quarter? So that's a good time if we can make the time, like a lot of teams plan for the quarter. So I would like to see that first week of the quarter be in person. And so that's how it came up. I thought, now you could do more, you could do less. I wouldn't do less, honestly, but you could do more. If you guys are all close by, then you might get together more often. But this is a minimum, is what I think. Now, I was interviewing a Gen Z person for my book, and one of the comments he made when I was making this very passionate argument about being together and connecting for team performance, he said, I don't go to work to make friends. I have friends. I go there to make money. Okay. Now, that's because he forgot, because he's in his mid-20s, that he's still riding high on all the friends he got from college. Okay. And this is the place where the generational thing may come in a little, because the people in their mid-20s do not realize that friends don't grow on trees. They think they do because they're just everywhere. We're like, I'm in school, so I'm just around people all day. And we just happen to connect. Now I've got a new friend. We're going to get coffee together. Before you know it, we're throwing axes or something. And I don't know, right? Like, so that connection is happening because you're being forced to be in space, school, okay? As you get older, your friends get married, they move off, they get kids, they go move out of state. And before you know, you're losing track with them. And the tap, I call it, for new friends starts to get a little shut down, right? And COVID's making that way, way worse, right? This whole idea that we all went into our way worse. So friends from high school, they don't grow on trees, and it gets hard as you get older. Whether you're friends with your coworkers or just friendly with them, it's going to be better for you. Okay. It's going to be better for you if you are. You're going to enjoy work more. That's the things I miss the most. Remember I told you about that guy that I know who's an extrovert? He's a good friend of mine, and I used to work with him at Nike. He's one of my favorite people. He just charges my batteries. I can be around this guy and he just makes me happy. We're laughing by faster. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want that. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want that. Okay. And your mental health line, because loneliness can kill you. They did a 9-year study of 7,000 people. This was not a small study. Okay. And they found that people who had weak social ties were 3 times more likely to die in those 9 years. Okay. And here's the part that blew my mind. Even people who had unhealthy lifestyles, who had strong social ties, outlived those people with healthy lifestyles who had weak social ties. In other words, having social ties is more important for your longevity than diet and exercise. Okay? So if you aren't spotting what I'm spotting, which is that 10 years from now, we're going to have a massive depression up spike. We're going to have a massive problem because people are becoming so comfortable with being introverted and inside their own space that they're not making connections with other people. Y'all, we have millions of years of evolution we're not going to overcome by just because we consume now. You know, there's no going back. It's not a bad thing. We're not going back to fax machines either. Okay, we're not going back. If we go back, we're not going back permanently or fully. I can tell you right now, I'd be very shocked. And I will tell you, any company that makes employees come in every day, like the old days, quote unquote, will have a competitive disadvantage over companies that don't, that figure out how to do this well. Not, it's way outside the, I'll tell you the part 3 of my YouTube is going to cover what companies can do when they, if you want to reimagine a company that was set up to do remote work rather than just bolted on to what you had before, which is what a lot of companies did. Okay, how would we rethink the way we make our teams, the way we make our organizations, right? I could go on about that. What's that? Yeah. Oh my God, I love that book. We just won't tech our way past social evolution. Okay, we have to consider it. We can't ignore it. And as I put my link up here, as I mentioned, there is part 1 of this talk, the one you just saw. A good part of what you just heard is on YouTube now. Literally just went live today. Part 2 and 3 will be out next Friday and the Friday after, and I'll be going through even more in depth on these other things. So that is it. I'll give you another shot of my goofy dog, and I'm here for anybody who have questions. Other questions? Anybody here or online?
The chat will throw them in here as they go, but I would say, do you ever see there being a virtual remote work platform or set where we can overcome some issues?
Well, some interesting things coming, right? I mean, the Elgato thing will help with the physical eye contact. Apple's Vision Plus or whatever is interesting. It's interesting what they're doing. Although here's the reason why I think that's not going to work. I'm not sure if you're familiar with how Vision Plus is supposed to work, or Vision Pro, sorry. Yeah, Vision Pro is going to be out actually in a month or 2. But yeah, virtual headset. And the way they're doing it is, how do I look at you with this on without you seeing me with that on? Right? Like when you see me with this big thing on my head. Well, actually, that's not how it works. What they do is they teach it what your face looks like. You have to do this whole 3 of your face, and then it puts a virtual version of your face for that. So it looks as if you aren't wearing that thing. Again, I know how clever we get with technology, we're not going to fool millions of years of social evolution. It's supposed to be fantastic, but I'm saying it won't solve the problem I'm talking about here, which is this connection problem, right? You're not going to really be, I mean, have you ever done the exercise where you just stare into someone's eyes? Actually really hard to do because it's such a vulnerable thing to look into someone's eyes. It's why we don't trust people who look away from us, and we do trust people who look at us, right? Because we feel like it's such a vulnerable thing to look someone. And so this is a big part missing from video, and I don't think we're going to be fooled by Apple's avatar into thinking that we're looking at. I don't think it's going to accurately represent the soul that's behind my eyeballs. So no, my answer is no. I don't think we're going to get there completely.
That's crazy. Thanks. I mean, remote California. So Peter, California. She got laid off.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, "Hey, you just trying to get a job?" I was like, "Yeah, they're hiring down there." She's like, "I'm not going there. I want to stay."
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, look, a lot of times you're talking to people like this. Number one, they're either introverts, and this is, I want to make this point about introverts. I didn't make it here. Introverts like being home more. I'm not saying your friend's an introvert, but I'm saying introverts typically like being home more. But what the problem is that they're hurting themselves. They're human beings, just like you and me. Just because they are introverted and I'm extroverted, human beings need the connection. Introverts have to fight over this urge to not. Extroverts have to fight to shut up, right? But both of us are wanting the same thing. It's just an introvert want to say, that they get a little recharge from having connection with people. So yeah, when you're arguing with someone about the being home or not, you are almost certainly arguing with their prefrontal cortex and not their limbic system. Yeah, because their prefrontal cortex can make a fantastic argument about why working from home is just as good as working in the office. I've got a camera, I've got blah blah blah. They're just, they don't understand system, you know, millions of years, right? So yeah. That's right. We just don't survive alone. We only survive. It's why we are the dominant species on the planet, and it's why we, at least until AI becomes our overlords, but you know, until then, we're the dominant species on the planet. We got that way because we banded together, and we banded together by learning very quickly, without a word spoken, how can I trust this person or not? Can I trust this person or not? I can't think of a good movie clip right now, but there are tons of movies where this has been simulated, right? Where people can't speak, like running by wolves or something, you know, and they don't have any, and there's this intense moment where, yeah, there you go, Encino Man, right? Where there's this, like, can I trust you? And there's a lot, every movement you make, if I just even scratch my ear, you're like, right? That urge is very deep inside of us. Yeah.
Your way of showing the introverts, let's give a classification.
Well, I'm married to an introvert, okay? And I can tell you that what I have to do is I have to just, look, he's very good at knowing because he's married to me. So he knows a lot more about psychology than most because he knows me. It's still pulling teeth. Like we got invited to some party, some dinner party thing. And I said, hey, you want to go? And he's like, no. I'm like, and he goes, okay, but we'll go because he knows he needs it. If you gave him his choice, he wouldn't do it. So in other words, I can't rationalize with someone who's rationalizing not to do it because it's uncomfortable, right? They have to intuitively know, yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's what my brain, it's food for my mental health to have a connection. So my argument would be that's why one of the reasons why I only pick 1 week a quarter. It's like, hey, for the other rest of the quarter, introverts, you win, you know, and extroverts are getting a little bit of their kick by doing that 3-hour all together thing where we can all just talk and work at the same time. So I think I'm trying to give everybody a little bit of something, and introverts don't have to do, you know, big awkward trust falls and weird teams. Oh, they can be in their cave most of the time. Yeah.
And we have already talked about this and also chat. But do you think because of COVID, more extroverts are becoming a little bit more introverted?
No, I don't think they're becoming more introverted. I think what's happening is they're getting miserable. In fact, it's so weird. Last night I was texting, this is, you know, I'm thinking about this for this talk. I was texting a friend of mine last night who's an extrovert, and he said, did you notice how fast I'm responding to your texts? And I was like, yeah, who are you? You know, he takes him all damn day to my text messages. And he said, yeah, I don't know why, but I'm feeling a lot more energetic lately. And I said, well, you're going back in the office. And he's like, oh my God, you're right. That's it. I never thought about it, but I'm getting a lot of juice from going in. He only goes in 1 day a week. He still works at Nike. He goes in 1 day a week. That's enough. That's something. But here it's 3 years has gone by and he hasn't, he's like a frog, that all of his energy has been depleted. I mean, he likes being around his kids. He's got 3 daughters. He loves being around them. That wasn't the thing. It's just, there's a connection you get from coworkers, and teaching virtually just doesn't do it. Yeah.
That makes sense. I feel like I can relate to that. I work remotely most of the time, but then I come into the office and here in Portland for like a week. And it's just such a difference. Like I have more energy and like more focus.
Yes.
Work.
Yeah. Right. And the thing is, while you're here, you're connecting with your coworkers. So when you go back to being remote, you're going to capitalize on that connection. You know, that friend I was telling you about that's really extroverted, I could talk to him on Zoom for 2 years and we're still going to have that connection because we had it in person.
And you meet with him, he spends his time with people.
Yes,
phone.
correct. Yes. And that's a big thing. He believes in that very much. Yeah, it is. This is another generational thing again. I just feel like we're not going to, I feel sometimes when I have these conversations, like I'm one of these get off my lawn, old guys. Look, I'm not a technophobe. Okay. I am from the generation, most of the things that everybody's holding in their hand. I know how it works. Okay. I also was alive long enough to know what it was like without it. So I can A/B, whereas anyone born with one in their hand cannot do that. And we're missing something from the way we're doing it now. I just want that back. I don't want to take everybody's phones away. I want everyone to find the middle again. Like, what's it look like? Oh, I'm with you. So no phones.
Just they need an app.
Oh, that would be definitely used for nefarious purposes. But Apple at least gives us focus. Also, if you use an iPhone, you can put your phone in focus. It takes a bit to set it up, but if you spend the time to figure out who can interrupt me right now in these moments and who can't, and what apps can interrupt me and which apps can't, you can program all that in to a profile. And then when I'm in my focus mode, the phone takes care of me, you know, and doesn't connection. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, Sean, let's do it.
I'm up here. So best way to get with me is LinkedIn. I don't do Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. It's a cesspool. I won't get in it. But I will be a lot of I will be doing more communication. Site, if you just want to read about what company's all about and what I try to do for companies, you can go there. And then, like I said, my YouTube channels where almost all of my focus is right now. I'm writing scripts, I think they look pretty professional. There's graphics, lots of good stuff. I spent a lot of time putting them together. It's not just me ranting in front of the camera. So yeah, that's where
When did you say that?
it's a 3-part series because it's so much to talk about. Is today. It's already out there now. Part 2, it will be next Friday. I will always release on Fridays in the afternoon. So Friday will be part 2 next Friday, and then the one after that will be part 3. Every Friday I'll do one. And I have a list of topics that is a mile long around how to be a better leader, how to avoid being a toxic leader. What do you do if your leader is toxic? How do you avoid? I mean, there's so many things. This is a very deep topic around how, as you from my book, as you can tell, you know, what a toxic leader will do to a company. So that's the main focus of my work. Yeah.
Awesome. John, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'll be happy to redo a recap of this for our side.
Cool. That would be great. Love to get a lot of subscribers. You know, I got to pass the damn threshold for YouTube to even get there, you know, whatever that is. Yeah. That it's not just that. It's, I can't even, there's some features they won't even unlock until you have so many subscribers and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Spread the word.
Fantastic.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys.